Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. It's too sweet. Anyway, continuing with my review of every NHL outdoor game played. And today, surprisingly enough, as quickly as we've got here, we're covering the second of two games played in 2015. Yeah, we just finished 2014 not too long ago. And now we're already finished 2015. But that's the benefit of only having two games in a calendar year. But I'm getting off topic. Today's topic is the fifth Stadium Series game, or the fifth in two years. Remember, they played four of them in 2014. And given the success they had for the first one, that one being the Kings and the Ducks, we talked about it here. Given the success that they had in that one in Los Angeles, it was only a foregone conclusion they were coming back to California at some point. And well, that point is now, as they visited Northern California for the 2015 edition of the Stadium Series, which would be seeing us see the San Jose Sharks host the Los Angeles Kings. So let's talk about it. Alright, so the NHL's 16th game played outdoors in league history was played on February 21st, 2015, being played from Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California, home of the NFL's San Francisco 49ers. Now, one could look at this on paper and be like, okay, well, Santa Clara is not in San Jose. Why not call it a neutral site game? Well, here's why. The distance between Levi Stadium, where the Stadium Series is being played, and the HP Pavilion, where the San Jose Sharks normally play their home games, is at best an 11-minute drive. So it's really not off-site or a neutral site. It's still within the confines of San Jose, so San Jose is the home team. Now, while it was always believed Northern California was going to be where they were going to go for the Stadium Series, the venue, much like the 2015 Winter Classic that we just covered, was the tricky point, as it was not known until the game was confirmed, but you had options between Levi Stadium, AT&T Park in San Francisco, which we now know as the Oracle, and Stanford Stadium, all being in consideration to host the event. But again, after official confirmation when the game was announced on August 6, 2014, one has to believe that Levi Stadium was the better option. Now, if I can take you back all the way to the 2015 Winter Classic that we had just covered, I mentioned something about the popular belief in that there would have been a little bit more on the table for outdoor games. Here's that popular belief. On top of the Winter Classic and on top of this game, the idea was for the NHL to play four games in 2015, with other locations such as Coors Field in Denver, Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and the Target Field in Minneapolis, Minnesota, along with Beaver Stadium at Penn State, and an undisclosed location in the Phoenix area, strongly being considered. Now, ultimately, cooler heads prevailed in all this. And the three locations we want to keep our ears and eyes open for are the ones in Denver, Foxborough, and Minneapolis, as they would see all those locations have outdoor games in the very near future. Now, the attendance for this game comes in at 70,205 spectators, which in terms of overall attendance figures puts us somewhere right around here at number 3. Now, I don't know if they were going after the number 2 spot, but the more you look at it, that number 1 spot was brought together by the 2014 Winter Classic right there. Looks a little bit hard to attain, but maybe one day. Now, temperature at game time came in at 57 degrees Fahrenheit, or in Canadian speak, 14 degrees Celsius. So, not quite the warmest of outdoor games, but nowhere near the coldest. So, with all that being said, let's go over the rosters. Alright, so for the Sharks, this is their first outdoor game in team history. So I guess as by such, a lot of these players are playing in their first outdoor game in their careers. Antiniemi will get the start in net. At this point in their history, they're coached by Todd McClellan. Let's talk about the Kings. So for the Kings, this is their second outdoor game in team history, having, much like the Chicago Blackhawks from the 2015 Winter Classic, previously played in a Stadium Series game in 2014, which I'm pretty sure we've already shown the bumper for. And despite a few subtractions and a few additions, the team is pretty much intact from that same game. Jonathan Quick's your starter, and the Kings are still coached at this point by Daryl Sutter. So having said all of that, let's talk jerseys. Now, the Sharks and Kings essentially have matching jerseys, the only difference being the colors. The logos still kind of go through that not so chromy, but still kind of shiny look and texture, with the numbers being enlarged, especially on the arms. I mean, it's very noticeable then. They also got a pretty sweet patch on the shoulder representing Northern California, in their colors and whatever else. But very solid jersey. I like these looks for the Sharks. So let's talk to Kings. So again, pretty much the same design, just difference in colors. I mean, the Kings are wearing white pants. Black is where white is where black should be. Gray is where teal should be. So it's pretty much the same jersey, just stylized for the Kings. The numbers are still large on the shoulders, and they have the same LA patch that they wore from the 2014 Stadium Series. So, all in all, if I like the Sharks, I guess I gotta like the Kings, right? I guess. And I forgot to mention, I guess I should mention it now, the two crowns on the neckline obviously represent the two Stanley Cups in team history. So with all that being said, let's get to the game. So we're starting off this game fast. We're shooting early, and both teams are throwing out the body as well. I mean, that should be expected for a rivalry game, right? Especially, cross-state rivals, right? So, since we're shooting early, it wouldn't take long for the scoring to start, as Kyle Connor would score his third of the season off of a tip-in from a Jake Muzzin shot at 2:46 to give the Kings the very early 1-0 lead. And more importantly, it would also give the Kings their first outdoor goal in 2 games. You gotta remember, in 2014, they were shut out by the Ducks. So, despite the quick start though, and the physicality, not much else was happening on the score sheet. But give it some time, we would get our first penalty of the game, as Brandon Dillon would get called for holding at 6:33 of the first period. Actually, this would actually be the only penalty of the first period, if you can believe that. So really, for the next 12 minutes, with not much to stop the play other than your generics offsides or TV timeouts, whatever, no penalties being called, it was pretty much a goaltending showdown between Jonathan Quick and Antiniemi, as both goalies were coming through clutch in the first period. But like all things, just give it time. And eventually you will get to the root of it, and the Sharks did get to the root of the Jonathan Quick puzzle, as Brent Burns would score his 16th of the season on a point shot off the face-off from Tommy Wingels at 18:56 to tie the game late at 1. And that's pretty much how the first period kind of ended. I mean, there's no denying it is kind of a physical game, and the shots do kind of tell a story of how often the puck went to the net, with the Kings out shooting the Sharks 12-10 in the first period. Now, as much as I was hoping for more scoring, and I really was, I mean, sure, a 1-1 tie is nice, but you kind of want to see more, given the context of the game. I was content seeing the goalie showdown, so I mean, not really complaining. Not at all. On to period number 2. So it's fairly safe to say a few constants stayed the same when it came to period number 2. The hits were still present. I mean, there was still lots of them going down. And 2, it was still very much a goalie showdown, with Jonathan Quick doing what Jonathan Quick does, and Antiniemi doing more or less the same kind of thing for the Sharks. And we wouldn't see our first penalty of the period until the 7:24 mark, when Robin Regeer would get called for hooking to give the Sharks their first power play of the game. Now, ultimately, that power play really resulted in nothing. About 5 minutes after that penalty was called, the Kings would go on a power play of their own as Matt Irwin would get called for hooking at 13:06. And, well, much like the Sharks power play, this too resulted in nothing. And give or take another 5 minutes after that, the Sharks would again go on the power play as Jake Muzzin would get called for a delay of game at 18:54. So this would take the Sharks into the third period, briefly on the power play. So with no goals in the second period, we're still tied at 1. Now, weird twist of irony, the Sharks defense really seemed like they were starting to show up in period number 2, with the Sharks managing to outshoot the Kings 15-6. Now, again, with neither team wanting to give up an inch, especially to one or the other. This has been a very close game, and, well, say what you want, it's all goaltending, really. I mean, the opportunities are present, but nothing's being capitalized on. So let's go to the third. So the third period would still be more hitting, but more of a focus would really come into zone coverage. But it's still definitely a matter of goals, or lack thereof. But really, it wouldn't take long for the next goal of the game to actually happen into the third period. Marian Gaborik would score his 17th of the season on a slap shot from a takeaway play from Jeff Carter to give the Kings the 2-1 lead 4 minutes into the third period. I mean, really, that's the best way to catch the goalie by surprise, when they're not expecting it, right? Right. Now, with that being the play that sets this game in motion, obviously the Sharks are really working on that comeback of theirs, and despite their best efforts to mount what could be called a comeback, the Kings, especially in that zone coverage, as well as Jonathan Quick being Jonathan Quick, who just could not be solved, it's just really hard for San Jose to get any traction in this game. Dustin Brown would take the last penalty of the game, being called at 10:06 for tripping, and, well, the ensuing Sharks power play was as inefficient this time as it was the first 2 times. And from this point on, it's pretty much letting the Kings let Jonathan Quick ride this thing to the end of the third period, which is what he did. And convincingly enough, the Kings walk away with the 2-1 win. Now, for what the score might suggest, that being, a 2-1 loss for San Jose, and despite being outshot 11-7 in the third period, they would end up winning the shot totals, outshooting the Kings 32-29 in the game overall. Now, I know we started out fast and often, and I was hopeful with all the hits and all the shots, and especially being what's supposed to be a rivalry game between, 2 cross-state rivals. I was hoping there would have been a little bit more, and I'd imagine if it was 2 different goalies in net for San Jose and LA respectively, would it have been a different kind of story? And what would that score look like? But, I mean, Jonathan Quick was near perfect, stopping 31 of 32 shots, and if it weren't for that awkward angle shot by Brent Burns, that could have easily been a shutout. And really the same thing could have been said for Antti Niemi, and I'm not saying the Kings' goals were fluky, but they just seemed to be at the right place, the right time, catching him when he was not expecting them. But it's the way to get the goals, right? But, I mean, for a rivalry game, it definitely showed it was a rivalry on the ice. But it didn't really reflect it on the score sheet. I was expecting a lot more penalties. I mean, some of the hits that were being laid out, some of the ways, there should have been more penalties called, but enjoy the moment, right? The score sheet should have looked a lot different, but it's not the worst game. There's been better, but here's where we are as far as outdoor records is concerned amongst teams. And really, we're only tracking the Kings' movement at this point, as this is their second game compared to the Sharks playing their first game, but the Kings did move up into the point column, and actually evened out their goal differential. Whereas the Sharks, again, this being their first game and they having as many goals for and against as the New York Islanders do. Of course, they're going to be the dead last team right now, but that's for right now. I'm sure that will change. This is only the 16th game. But like I said, overall, not the best game, not the worst game, but still a very close game. Either way, let me know your thoughts on the 2015 Stadium Series. It's another one of them Trev's Hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you made it to this point. And if you have made it to this point and you're digging what I'm doing, give me that thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. Even if you just want to say, hey, if you're, like I said, if you're digging what I'm doing, you want to let me know you've made it to this point, the thumbs up helps a lot. If you want, that red button that says subscribe all over it, come on, if you haven't yet, you know you want to. I know you want to. The algorithm will thank you for it. And to everybody who's jumped along since, thank you very much. Just know that I'll do what I can to keep you entertained with my content as best as I can. If you want, that link in the description below, that'll take you to my Facebook page. Follow me there. Love to build an audience there as well. Let's move forward. Well, we're done the 2015s. Well, we'll start the 2016s. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for more videos from Trev. Later.